Hello, everybody who's listening to this podcast. This is William Moore. I'm a member of SASAB, and I'm going to be kicking us off on our little interview-esque series that I think we're going to be calling Journeys Abroad. The name isn't actually completely finalized yet, so we'll see how that goes. I'm here with Mira.
Hi, my name's Mira Robleski, and I'm a freshman here at the college. Last year, I took a gap year in Moldova to study Russian.
And Mira is going to be a prime example of what we're going to be talking about a lot on this little podcast, which is just the experience that William & Mary students had while they were abroad. Although, unfortunately, we're breaking habit a little bit because Mira is already a little bit different than our average William & Mary student. Perhaps you would like to, expand upon why you chose to go abroad before you even came to William & Mary.
Sure. So I was looking specifically into this scholarship program called the National Security Language Initiative for Youth. They offered a gap year program, and I applied, and I got it, and I deferred my admission, and I lived there for 9 months.
So do you want to maybe expand upon, maybe what was your academic experience a little bit like? Because, there's a little bit of a difference between high school and more college level stuff. So what were you doing academically, quote unquote, while you were there?
So while I was there, we had 4 hours of language classes per day, 2 hours of grammar classes, and 2 hours of phonetics and conversation. But that was in a university setting, taught in full immersion Russian. Our teachers did not speak a lick of English. And then outside of that, we also went to a local high school for some additional classes, which we were allowed to choose. So I attended PE and a class called Character Development, which essentially was their homeroom type class. We did driver's ed, anti-bullying things, safe use of the internet, and that involved just a lot of presentations, class discussions, and poster making. But yeah, and gym was especially interesting because they had not updated the gym since the collapse of the Soviet Union. So it was quite a mess. A lot of metal bars and the wood floors coming up. Kids tripped all the time, but yeah. So it was also very different having that university experience with only our fellow American peers versus the high school experience where it was just 1 or 2 of us in a class of entirely Moldovans.
Did you find the culture there, difficult to acclimate to? Was it, different in some ways that surprised you, different in ways that didn't surprise you?
It was similar in a lot of ways, especially among young people, but that older generation, one, they're more Russian speakers, so most young people actually primarily speak Romanian there. But so they're Russian speakers and they have a lot of the Soviet values, but most of them are also very religious. So, for example, one day we had a Halloween party and about half of the host families didn't let their kids go because they said it was like a satansky praznik, like a satanic holiday. It's definitely a more conservative culture, even among younger people. In general, respect for women is in a very different way. So very much is like the matriarch who cooks and provides and cleans, but her primary goal is to have kids. So there a lot of the girls on our program, despite some of them being as young as 16, were asked, oh, are you looking for a husband here in Moldova? And when met with the answer that some of us don't even want to have kids or aren't thinking about marriage right now, we were met with shock and oh, what? No one will ever love you if you think like that. But that role of wife and mother is very highly respected. So, yeah, it's definitely more conservative, but a very loving place. All of our host families were so, so sweet, especially host mothers, not only with food, but I was sick for many weeks, and I had to go to the emergency room a couple times, and my host mom was always there right behind me with, blankets and tea and asking what I needed, and not only providing her own strange home remedies that her own mother had done for her, but also
strange home remedies such as
rubbing vodka on my feet and rubbing a warm egg up and down my nose. Everyone's host family had a different one. Oh, there was also not vodka, but rinsing your hands with Listerine. I don't know why it was hands, Listerine, and feet vodka, but... Oh, one of our teachers also told us, this isn't so much a home remedy, but if we put an orange on our desk, then our mood will improve, and therefore we will be healed. So, yeah, she gave all of us oranges when we were sick, but not to eat, only to look at and improve our mood. So,
did you find any of them worked?
No, not at all.
What would you say is kind of the best anecdote that you would want somebody to know about your time there? Just like, what was a story that you're like, yeah, this was definitely a result of me coming here. This would not have happened under any circumstance otherwise.
There's a lot of stories like that. I would say one of them...
Well, that's a good sign, honestly,
yeah,
having
exactly.
a lot of stories like that.
Especially me and my friends were very... We explored the city a lot, just all the little, like, dark corners that maybe we shouldn't have gone to. One that particularly stands out, just that comes to me right now, is me and one of my close friends decided to explore this abandoned observatory right down the road from our school, and we got through it. There's a lot of, like, graffiti and trash. It's pretty gross, but we got through it, and we got to the top where the observatory is. And there were a bunch of kids there, like 13, 14, clearly think they're very cool. They're smoking, and they speak very little Russian. Since they're so young, they're mostly Romanian speakers. But they come up to us, and they're like, oh, where are you from? In very broken, first in Romanian, and then we replied to them in Russian. And they talked to us in that broken Russian, which only two of them spoke. And anyway, we were telling them, like, oh, we're from America, and they're like, oh, really? You sound like Russians. And first of all, that was a huge compliment for being the end of the year, although it was from people who don't themselves speak Russian. And then one of them from the back goes, Johnny, Johnny, and he was referencing, like, this meme, and I don't know, it was just this very strange moment of cross-cultural bonding as we're like, Johnny, Johnny, yes, Papa? And the entire group of, like, 13-year-old boys who were struggling to communicate with us goes like, yeah, and everyone bursts into laughter. But, yeah, just a mixture of adventures. Not all of it has, like, some crazy climax to the story, but just situations that I would have never, ever found myself in otherwise. And a lot of it was done independently with me and my friends. We had so much free time to do things like that. So
I was going to say, it sounds like you would encourage people to explore a bit during their study abroad. It's not just stay in the classroom.
But one, getting down there and talking to your host family is like the greatest resource you have. I had so many conversations with my host family, even on days when I was really exhausted, where, like, my host mom would tell me about, like, right after the collapse of the Soviet Union was when she had her first kids, and she was, like, talking about how they had to, like, stand in line for food and what a hard life she had. Her husband actually passed away at that time, so she raised all three of her kids on her own, and how she was working, and how her kids had to all stand in line for, like, just one loaf of bread for hours, and how they sent aid and they sent, like, diapers, and she goes, just, like, little facets of her everyday life back then that are so fascinating. So, yeah, just talking to any of the locals is such a different experience, and you really learn to appreciate what life is like now in a different country and what it was like back then. So
would you say you recommend it?
Oh, greatly, yes. Like, I'm already applying for other study abroad scholarships, so studying abroad anywhere is just amazing. I cannot sing my praises enough. But you do have to make the most of the opportunity. If you go and just show up to class and then sit at home on your phone, you're not going to get as much out of it as someone who actually takes advantage of the fact that they are in a foreign country with all this freedom.
All right. Well, that sounds like a pretty high praise to me, to be quite frank.
Absolutely.
So with that, we're going to wrap up. I thank you, Mira, for test piloting this with us, because we're excited to get this started, and it's been quite the talk at the office of the Reeves Center. So
thank you for having me.
Another way to have a lot of people interested. So thank you once again to listening to this tentatively named Journeys Abroad. Hopefully we'll be publishing more of these. Well, not hopefully. We have people scheduled to do other ones coming up pretty soon. And hopefully we'll reveal just more and more about different parts of the world where the tribe has tread. I can work on alliteration from time to time.
Wow.
So this has been a publishment of the Reeves Center, put through the podcasting network at William and Mary. I'm William Moore, a member of the Study Abroad Student Advisory Board, there we go, long name, long title, who are going to be hosting this until we're not anymore. Thank you for listening, and we hope you all have a good day.